Welcome to my Sorare Journey, episode 112, where we have over a month worth of Sorare to catch up on. But first, I want to touch on why I took so long out from making videos. Ultimately, life just got pretty tough, and the last thing I wanted to do was come on here and talk about football or try and be upbeat, because life wasn't upbeat. We had someone very close to us, me and my fiance, take quite a lot from us. You know, it was emotionally draining, it was financially draining, and that's still the case. But the thing I keep coming back to is this meme.
Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, and maybe not the next month, pero only one thing is true. I will be champion one day, I promise. I promise.
Because we might not get to where we were at in a day, or a month, or a year, but I believe in my fiancée so incredibly much that I know she will get back to that peak and beyond that peak, undoubtedly. So I might not be champion today or tomorrow, but we will make it happen. That is a mindset we're in, and I think that is where I'll leave it, because I don't want any more legal issues. They are a lose-lose scenario for everyone. One thing quickly before we move on, I just want to say I don't want nor need any sympathy or any money or anything like that. You can see I've still got my Sorare team, you know, I've still got my flat here. Despite things getting tough, it's important to just zoom out and say everyone's fine. You might have lost a bit, doesn't mean you can't make it back up. You know, I sold some, expensive Pokemon cards to give us more of a safety net whilst we're both without a job at the minute. But that's completely fine and normal. And, we believe in ourselves and we will be absolutely fine. It's just, in the moment, it can get heated. But now, let's talk about Sorare, which, unfortunately, to give a big spoiler, has been going a bit like my life. Not the best of performances. This was probably where I left you off. No real rewards there, relegated from Div 2, and our community team made our first ever return. I think this $5 is due to ordering. I'm really sorry I didn't send you that. I didn't forget, it was just more important things were on my mind. And yeah, just, this result was good, a tier 2. We got a League 1 player out of that. You might have even seen that, to be honest. I think I put a short up of that. That was probably the last video I did make. These are internationals, which no one cared about. I haven't actually seen these, so we'll be running together on this. Second place in a arena. Gets you a little bit of essence, but nothing mental. Another arena with not a lot going on. And back to the main stuff. So the Premier League, we did get promoted for this team, which was a nice performance given the fact that Tottenham obviously lost. I finally got to unseal my Saka. If you watched the last video, I made the horrific mistake of not being able to use him when I needed him, but thankfully he is back just when we need him most. Outside of that, we instantly got back relegated in the community team. Guardiola being benched, that's sort of the risk you play with Man City. I think despite everything else, the one thing I do want to point out is, I think people think like you just buy a big stack like Man City and you do great, and the community team will show you that's not particularly true. This was a nice performance from, a team I'd given up on in the former Kawasaki Frontale. They hit $10, which is their first ever win. But besides that, yeah, just nothing to write home about, which is important when my main goal is the rare Premier League team. And you can see at this stage, I don't even think we're in Division 1. Sorry, we were in Division 1, but we got instantly back relegated with a Jordan Pickford disaster class versus Tottenham. This was semi-recent. And what's sort of annoying is I feel like I'm still making the right choices, I have no good forwards to use. Bruno Fernandes captain was the right choice, but it doesn't matter. Obviously, you can move in players like Reece James and put Elliot Anderson and Garner and stuff around, but it just doesn't make sense with the concept of the team. The concept is you keep the good players together. This was like a case of so close but so near. We had, Sam Johnson, and it basically came down to Iwobi, and yeah, he has a tough fixture. I'm really struggling with injuries, which I'll touch on later. Div 3 team did really well, and I think when you're looking at this, you're like, okay, well, you've got this wrong. Van der Ven and Porro in a Division 3 team when you could have put them in Division 1. But, yeah, it's just sort of things you learn from. Van der Ven I've never fully trusted, despite him doing very good. And I've been really working with this idea of getting 6% if it's better to use a worse player like Danzo, and obviously he's got a low average, and then you can play in better players around him and try and get a 6% boost. It would make sense if we were there at the time, but yeah, I think the main thing is we weren't hitting hot streaks and we weren't hitting money rewards, which, we've spent a decent whack on the team. I think a lot of this now is some bad luck, but also you've got to hold your hands up and say some poor fixture selections. This one must have been last week where, we relied on Saka quite heavily. We captained him in one team and then left him in the other team. And again, you're making good choices like Bruno captain over Saka. I was very pleased with that. And then you get people like Van der Ven ripping 100 one week, then 18 the next. So it's like, is it my fault, that against Everton he rips 100 with 2 goals and he's in Div 3, and when I put him to Div 1 he rips 18 against Chelsea at home? That is just sort of fantasy football, I think. It's not about having good players, it's about knowing when players will score well, and with Van der Ven I've recently struggled. But I think around here and here is sort of where we're bringing the positive mindset back to life. We're moving on. That's the best way to put it. And the Sorare teams were picking up. I'm so surprised that out of all the players here, Van Dijk and Unai Simon sort of let it down. But I think it's probably more the other players overperforming, like Spurs winning 4-0 and having all my players come on and get decisive, like Paulinho and Xavi weren't guaranteed to start. Same here, Rice and Saka could have been rested, although Arteta hates resting people. But finally, we did actually win some sort of money with this bad boy team. Now, again, super happy with myself here because Porro as a selection over Van der Ven or Marino or Raya, it was actually quite close. Wirtz was sort of the only person I had to play there, and he was only 40% likely to start according to Sorare Inside. So the fact that we've got that win in terms of him starting and him putting a good score up, but Jesus, Dominic Szoboszlai's miss, or probably more a Courtois save, outrageous, and then Salah not squaring in the ball. It's just, how Salah's been this season. I think he's been very greedy and not really too impactful or too decisive. I'd say he's wasted more than he's gained from... I have watched a lot of Liverpool games and, I'm not particularly biased because I've got them both, but I would like to see Wirtz do more. Marino, he was actually a nice Essence craft. I did record most of the Essence crafts, but they're pretty negative because A, was in a negative mindset, but B, I just don't think it's fair. Like, I got a tier 2 plus, and I basically picked the best card in there, and it was Marino, and I'm like, what a backup option for Arsenal. I'm lucky that Gyökeres is injured at the minute, but, he's like £25-30 when I got him. I was like, is that a tier 2? And that was the best one. I got lucky I selected the best one. So, crafting's been really going against me this entire season. Right off the bat, we got Saka and Wirtz. We missed them both. And then since then, no one I'd really care about. And, yeah, it's sort of how the system works, isn't it? Not everyone can get good cards, and then you see them on Twitter. But yeah, $53 of market credits is very, very important and sort of getting us to that spot now where maybe I don't hate my team so much. I have made some acquisitions. I think we need to talk about them because that also wasn't going very well. I just sort of got stuck in no man's land trying to get a really good deal, and then players I just missed out on because I wasn't paying a market price. I was trying to get a bid below market price, and then I never picked anyone up, and I sort of just got smashed by good scores because I knew these players were good, and I'm just like, what? They were good prices. Why are you trying to be extra cheap with them? This is outrageous. I just wanted to see what this team was, and he's captain Nick Pope, who's got a 92, and he's won. Oh wow! I've never seen anyone run a Newcastle stack and win the Champions League competition, and I've never seen anyone run a goalkeeper captain and win anything in rare. That is mental. Congratulations to DNZ. There is actually one thing I want to touch on here in regards to Essence. You'll see if I go to my rare Essence, 1885 rare Essence. Now, from my memory, I have spent nothing. But if you go back to the past game week and you look at what I won 1,000. It's basically at 1885. But I should have got 5% on that 1885. And I'll put a screenshot up here where it showed me that I had one more. I like 1,950, something like that. But it's just not there in my account. So be careful to check your account with these things, because I only noticed it because I know I had basically 0 essence. So yeah, it's like I'm missing my 5% boost. I've obviously reached out to Sorare support and it's the weekend, so they've probably not looked. But yeah, you know, for someone that's got such a big team, only getting $50, which is again market credits across a month, it's just not good enough, to be frank. You know, I did get some decent essence and I got nothing from them, as I sort of mentioned. But let's move on and let's look to the future of what we're cooking at the minute. So right off the bat, Bruno Fernandes is starting. I did not know that. The lineups are out and the game's starting in 30 minutes time. So, you know, him away to Spurs is a bit flaky, a bit unknown. Spurs have been awful at home and, yeah, just uninspiring as a team. So they could, you know, and Man United have been hot and cold. At the minute, they're sort of running a bit hot, but also came off a draw the last game. So unknown, but it's Fernandes. So you just sort of play him and hope for the best. A lot of people here would be sort of criticising this decision. Obviously, Saka on paper is probably a better decision. Easier fixture and things like that. My goal is to hit these top prizes. And to hit these top prizes, you can't run the same teams as everyone else. I'd be pretty confident that Saka is one of the most captain players in the game. And those teams that can afford Saka, they're running them with absolute monsters. Like, they'll have your Caicedos, they'll have Gabriels and people like that are really going to exploit and do well. So I want Saka to do well, but I don't want him to rip a massive score, is sort of my thinking. You know, it's not a wise choice in fantasy football to not select your best player frequently. I don't do it every week. But what I've done here is Elliot Anderson, who I will touch on and say is absolutely outstanding as a Sorare card. You know, last 15 is 60, last 40 are 45. And what you see is when he plays weak oppositions, he is very 100 capable. And even when he's not getting decisive action, 71, 66s. Yes, it gets weaker against harder teams, Arsenal, Crystal Palace. But it's predictability. So I'm going to predict that Nottingham Forest beat Leeds. You know, that's what I'm relying on. So I've gone for him, which partners with Nico Williams. So Nico Williams is a weird one. He is either going to put up a massive score or an awful score, and it's going to make or break my game week. But I think my players are good enough where in this week I'm actually attacking the fixtures. So I'm attacking and saying, I don't want a solid finish in 40th to 20th. I really am trying to push right to the very top and get there. Now that sort of requires a couple of things, you know, Arsenal not to absolutely rip. It requires luck, of course, all this stuff. But I've got really strong bonuses on my cards, you know, in terms of XP. You know, all of them are XP multiplied, which is brilliant. It's just about them sort of clicking together. And it's not my best week. You know, Fernandes can have a better fixture. Pickford has just fell apart recently. But for a Div 1 team, it's got a chance to win, and that gives you that excitement factor. And I've differentiated myself where if Elliot Anderson and Nico Williams rip a score, I'm going to be up there, because not many people will be running that stack in Division 1, especially not with decent bonuses, which I have. Moving on to Division 2, this is what I've been talking about in terms of bonuses. So what I'll touch on before that is Saka. So it's not a wise choice to not captain your best player all the time. Thankfully, I've got two of him. So I've got my main option, which is swing for the hills and hope, you know, he does a good performance, but not as good as Elliot Anderson. I win the division. And then I've got that insurance option of, let's say Saka rips 100. Well, I wouldn't mind 100 in my team. I'll be quite high up the division in terms of Division 1 probably, if everyone else does normal. And I've got him captain in my Division 2 team, which, yeah, there'll be a couple of him, but this sort of team selection I'm not seeing anyone having in there either. So I'm sort of playing the best of both worlds. I did have this last week where I played the best of both worlds and Saka dropped a stinker, and it means the rest of my week are stinkers. But he is one of the best players in the game, so you can't expect him to drop a stinker every week. Overall, I've surrounded him with sort of the best I have, which I'll get to when I go through sort of my depth in each position. You know, I have that nice spreadsheet. But first I want to touch on, obviously, my recent buys and sells. So Iwobi is not really a card I'd want. But it is sort of, again, I've got that insurance option because if Fulham do well, then I've got Leno and Iwobi in the same team. If they do badly, I've got Pickford in Div 1. So the best of a bad bunch is how I would describe my forward and my goalkeeper. And then I brought in Wesley Fofana this game week, £17. He looks like he's going to start for Chelsea most weeks, at least 80%. They'll rotate a bit, but, you know, if he's fit, for me, he's just going to play because he's the better option than Chalobah, Tosin, Achipong. So yeah, that sort of makes sense to me. And then Marino, he ripped a good score midweek. He can rip a good score again. But what this comes down to is getting that 6% boost. So they average, is it 260 as a last 15? It's easier to see when you're actually building the team. But basically, I'm getting 6% bonus on all of their scores today. And I love that. It's huge. It means I've got maximum 2 from each club and I fit in the points cap. When you move down, boom, all the players are playing. Now, Paulinho or Marino was a tight one. And unfortunately, it meant they'd either drop from my second best team to my fourth best team, because they're all in order here. But Paulinho was 70% to play. Marino was 80, and in terms of fixtures, they're pretty close. But overall, it's nice to see that we've got some early starters. And this is a solid team for Div 2. Captain, I didn't really put much thought into. I had a busy day. But Van de Ven and Porro, this again, it's one of those weeks where I'm going to struggle because all my teams are playing each other. But it does give me the insurance options if I can get every fixture right in terms of selection. So if Spurs do well, then you're hoping Van de Ven and Porro do well. James Garner is obviously the whole Pickford versus Iwobi and Leno scenario. Raya should just face 0 shots and keep a clean sheet like he's been doing every game week and rip a 60. It is just mental. I have never seen a team this defensively strong in my life, except for maybe that Chelsea, was it like 04, 05, something like that team. Noah Okafor isn't awful, but like I said, I think Forest will beat Leeds. I've just realised pretty much all my teams are playing each other, so you can put an argument for either of them. And for a Div 3 team, this is probably quite good. Rice, Paulinho, Michael Keane, Sam Johnson, not ideal, especially with a new manager. And Wirtz is just unpredictable at the minute, annoyingly. So let me jump into who I've been buying. Starting with Rodri, and yes, you might be a bit confused why I'm spending more money on my Sorare team, but then selling other assets to build safety nets and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, I do make a bit of money off this channel, so it's fun. You do need to continue with your life and enjoy it. I can make a little bit of revenue from YouTube and whatever else. And yeah, I've already invested, $4,500 in my team. To sell it all now when I'm planning for the whole season also doesn't make sense. So no real scenario is good in this scenario. I've just done what feels best. So Rodri, we picked him up for £132. Overall, I think that could be a really good price. It's obviously super risky because he's injured. He's got a sort of a reoccurring injury, which is some of the worst. But Pep's really taken his time with him. He played against Bournemouth for 1 minute. He missed the Dortmund game. He'll probably miss the Liverpool game. Then he'll have the international fixtures. That's not rushing him back. And that's sort of what I'm looking for when I'm getting these injured players. It's someone that's got the time to recover. And when he's back, an absolute top scorer. anyone that remembers Rodri when Man City last won the league, he was the best player in the game, bar none. So if I can pick him up for half the price of a Caicedo, under half the price of a Rice, I'm not saying it's guaranteed to be good. Some days I wake up and think, why did I do this? It just doesn't feel like a good decision. But I know if you look at more of a long-term approach on Sorare, I think it'll be good. We got Kinksky from Tottenham. This is just pure unlucky, I think. You know, I was watching the Spurs game. Vicario's gone down injured. He's gone down off the ball. When that sort of thing happens, it's not a good sign. He's out for a while. But Vicario just stood up and started playing again and was absolutely sound. So maybe a bit trigger happy, but I think those sort of moments on Sorare where you get your best value buys, you know, it made perfect sense for £27 because I'm also getting his in-season sort of bonus. You can see other people must have done the same thing as me, but I just think poor luck. You know, 9 times out of 10 that'll work. It didn't. I crafted John. Was this a tier 2 plus? No, thankfully it wasn't, but it was sort of one of the best crafts I could get. Wesley Fana, £17. We have Dominic Solanke. Again, you can sort of see I'm trying to compete on a budget and build that depth with solid players that are out injured, and I get collection bonus. You know, £20, I would easily pay £10 or £15 for a card that's not going to play. So for someone like Solanke, who I think is going to be Tottenham's first choice player, you know, Mwani's missing chances all the time, Richarlison's missing chances all the time. When he's back fit, you know, I think he just fits that system perfectly. You know, it's yet to be seen. That's why he's so cheap. Someone got him even cheaper. But obviously I get the special edition card, which is 20 points, and first edition. So 50 points for buying from the auction was fantastic for my Spurs collection. I got Van der Ven, Porro, Paulinho. Lots of options there. So, yeah, I'm very happy with that pickup. Sort of swing without a miss, really. You know, it's hard to miss for that sort of value. Uriel Hato is obviously just a collection boost for Cole Palmer and Fofana. You know, you're getting him for, what I get him, £13, special edition. I also got spins of the wheel and things like that. You know, like I said, I'd pay £15 to £10 for collection bonuses depending on how good the card is. When Cole Palmer's back fit, it'll be great, and Fofana's a nice boost. Kobe Mainoo, exactly the same thing. This time I'm boosting Bruno Fernandez's collection by 1%. Fernandez is always in my Div 1 teams. It makes a lot of sense. The only annoying thing, and it annoys me I did this, was that Mainoo finished first, so I bid, like, whatever I bid, 14, 15 quid to get the special edition. Casemiro was finishing a couple minutes later and went for, like, the exact same price, if not, like, £1 more. So if you're getting a card and you're doing it for collection bonus, at least get the one that's going to get utility. Casemiro ripped against someone the game after I got Mainoo, so that's just annoying. Marino was a craft, a tier 2 plus, just didn't really make sense. Sam Johnson, I guess you wouldn't have seen either. Yeah, I've actually made a lot of buys this sort of break. I guess it's because, you know, I just won the division, so I had that money to sort of try and build and win Division 1. Sam Johnson is just what I thought was too cheap. £43, starting goalkeeper for Wolves. Obviously, Wolves haven't been great, but, you know, against teams like Burnley, ripping 66, that's all you need, you know. We'll see how he does today against Chelsea. He's not really had a tough fixture, and annoyingly, they've changed managers, which puts the goalkeeper thing back into contention, so not amazing, but I don't really regret it either. Milos Kerkez, I guess I sort of regret, but it's that collection bonus. The fact I have Andy Robertson from a craft, then I thought, you know, I will get £20. What I pay? £24. I will get £24 of utility out of this guy. He's going to start for Liverpool, or Robertson's going to start, so I've got both. You know, he's got international fixtures. When he does well, he does really well. You know, here a 92 against Arsenal. All you need is one of them to get injured, and you've got a guaranteed starter for Liverpool. I know this sort of 60-40 every week thing is what I usually try and avoid and definitely advise against. But I already had the 60% of the equation, or the 40%, depending on what week it was, because I crafted Robbo. So Kirkez made sense. You can see my craft of Robbo there, which you already know. Noah Okafor, again, I crafted. Again, this was a tier 2 plus, and I'm looking at Noah Okafor. Just didn't feel like a tier 2 plus. And then he was injured for the week I actually wanted him against Burnley. Yeah, like I said, I feel like my luck's been bad, but this game is over a season. You know, I could win the last game of the season, make up all my money for my team, and then not care. So overall, we can see total spends have gone up to 4.7. It is a lot of money, but you know, I did a quick sum of sort of how far we are through the Premier League game weeks to where we are now, and I'm just below sort of the run rate of getting my money back. It's basically in line, so nothing mental. And obviously, if this first place was Division 1, the same score would have won it, and I only didn't get it because Anthony Robertson was randomly injured. These were sort of players I was looking at buying, so if you are looking for sort of my advice, this was who I was looking at. And Buemo is the one I was talking about before that really hurt, because I was trying to get him for super cheap. I know he's incredible in terms of he's on set pieces, he's playing for United who's scoring good goals, he helps Bruno Fernandes's XP, and he ripped against, can't even remember who it was, and now he's super expensive, and I'm so weak in the forward position. You know, Palmer's injured, Wirtz we can't guarantee to start, Iwobi's dropping back to centre mid now, Solanke's injured, Okafor plays for Leeds, who are pretty bad at the minute. Bruno Fernandes, Rodri, Elliot Anderson, Paulinho, and Ghana is basically the exact opposite. That is so much strength, especially when Rodri's back. It's sort of what I'm thinking is I'll have one defender, two midfielders, and a forward every game. It's important to remember when we're looking at the forwards why I've not desperately gone out and bought someone else to replace, you know, in here, is that Salah and Saka usually can do a job as my extra card. So that means I need to play one of these defenders, and, you know, I've got depth of teams here. Man City, Spurs, Nottingham Forest, now Chelsea and Liverpool, and Everton. You know, Michael Keane's still playing, not amazing, obviously. That gives me a lot of options. Ait-Nouri's returning to fitness. He was one of my superstars for the season, my predictions, and we've barely got to see him play. Annoyingly, O'Reilly's playing really good now, so maybe it throws his position into like a bit more dubious, a bit more uncertain if he'll start. And yeah, I'm not sure on the answer. We'll see in time. I would love for O'Reilly to go right back and Ait-Nouri to play left back, Guardiola and Diaz to slot in centre back. I think that would rip for City. I think that would rip for fantasy scores. But yeah, it's just not happening. Jordan Pickford, Leno and Sam Johnson are probably where I'd have to hold my hands up and say, fucked it. You know, like, Pickford, best goalkeeper last season because he makes saves, distribution, all of that. But it's not been the same this season. I thought the change of rules where 3 goals conceded would just see him be even stronger of an option, especially when he was cheaper than Alisson and Raya and everyone else. But no, probably should have got Vicario, which is quite annoying because I had Vicario all of last season. I know how good he is. I just thought Thomas Frank would be like he was at Brentford, where it was like, we score 4, you score 3. And it's not been like that. And Vicario is one of the best shot stoppers in the league, and that is great for points. Yeah, I hold my hands up, just say I've messed up the goalkeeper scenario. You know, Leno's still doing that thing where he concedes 1 or 2 goals, and Sam Johnson was just, you know, filling in for a Div 3 or Div 14, which is fine because we have got Alisson and Raya in Classic for lower down the division. So, you know, my confidence, my Sorare team is sadly not as high as I'd like it to be. Wirtz, I have so much reliance on him at the minute with Palmer injured, and I can't trust him. You know, I know he's good when he plays, but he's lacking those decisives. He's got competition now with Szoboszlai. That was the other one. Oh, Sob. He's got to be like my top choice right now. I got like 3 or 4% on my Liverpool collection. Szoboszlai's on most set pieces for Liverpool. They're attacking. He's nailed. And again, I just couldn't bite the bullet and play the price. I'd rather get Rodri, which I don't know if I'll live to regret. Rodri is a lot cheaper, say like £50. So we'll see in time, but it's just a weird scenario where I've got really good players, that midfield, some of these rip absolute scores, but I just don't feel that confident in it. But I know every week I have a chance to win Div 1 if I'm in Div 1. So you let me know what you think of the team there. Ultimately, we have the community team as well. If you want to join the community team, all you need to do is to donate in the link in the description to my Ko-Fi. That gets you entered to win the rewards of this team. However, big disclaimer, there hasn't been many rewards yet, so don't be expecting a big landslide. I was going to keep, and I was going to make this super strong by the end of the season, but we just need to, sort out things with jobs and that before I start, rolling more money into the game. Because even though the money I've spent recently on my team, that was always in my account and it was winnings and things like that. So I hope, they sort of come good, but looking at it now, Man City aren't actually that good. It's just Haaland. So having a Man City stack without Haaland is like boxing with one hand tied behind your back. Not exactly optimal. But we do have a bit of Forest in there. I think it just sort of fits, these guys pretty much donezo as well. The classic team struggling with some injuries. So, and of course, we'll be drawing the winner for the community team. We'll do for the next 2 weeks, I would say. It's always the last 10 donations. And it is going to be Leeds United community for this week. And for the next Premier League game week, it will be... Oh, I thought he was going to do it back to back. So, Red Seagull, thank you to everyone that has donated and supported the channel. It really means a lot. Look, this is where we're at on my Sorare journey. We have chances. We've got good teams. We've got good players. And we're just sort of in maybe no man's land at the minute. We got very unlucky with some key injuries, both in Classic and in season. And this is sort of where we're at. So I hope I can come back in a day's time saying I won Div 1. But it's not looking the most likely ever. But it doesn't need to be. This game is played across the entire season. What I do want to do is thank you. A few of you asking about me, noticing I wasn't here. It means a lot. Few people commented how amazing my videos are. And when I was sat in not a good way and just like neglecting this YouTube video or this YouTube channel, I did not think anyone would care at all. To be honest, I didn't think anyone would notice. And they did, and that was super kind. And when I told people on Twitter that things just weren't going well, I had like 75 likes, 10 plus comments. And it means a lot. It really does. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. Obviously, without a job, you'll probably be seeing more of my face. So subscribe to the channel. But finally, all the best to you. Cheers.